complication of cultural processes by subverting the spectacle of melody and questions of the social functions of practice and passive listening techniques, end quote. For Thelowitz, despite an overwhelming domination by male producers against a backdrop of heterosexism and gender biases, discourse begins to emerge which involve the act of disclosure, inversion, and convolution of sonic and experiential relationships. And thus, it is through such a phenomenon that we begin to bear witness to the layered contents and contradictions that extend to the very manner allowing for the generation of multiple political discourses against forms of reception that are largely apolitical and humanist in tone. A notable example of such practice may be exemplified couture cosmétique, which utilizes residual noises produced through digital synthesis techniques. Such examples use granular synthesis, pitch time convolution, and heterodyne filter analysis. For Thelowitz, such elements bring into focus sounds which currently exist in a repressed state, the periphery of popular culture, music production. Thelowitz states, quote, "The limitations of such audio technologies are used to imitate new functionalities which remain excluded or omitted popular development, a metaphor which may be applied to the construction and utilization of post-industrial technologies in general," quote. At this point, we may begin to bear witness to certain parallels with the thought of 20th century critical theorist Herbert Marcuse, in particular the notion of a smooth democratic unfreedom of a one-dimensional society. In this regard, we may witness strands of Marcuse's warning, which situates the notion that two-dimensional culture may not be or rejection, rather through a wholesale incorporation into the established order. With this said, Marcuse noted a political potential situated upon a realization grounded in locating aesthetic forms to communicate the possibilities of a liberating transformation of the technical and natural environment. For such a transformative possibility, he argued for the need of a communication of the radically nonconformist with a corresponding language to break oppressive rule. For such a language to be political for Marcuse, not from invention, but rather through subversion. Thus, for Marcuse, a related desublimation would entail a return to an immediate form of expression, engaging not only the intellect in a refined, distilled, restricted sensibility, but also, and primarily, a natural sense of experience freed from the requirements of an obsolescent, exploitative society. Such a means would express the experiences of the body and the soul, not as vehicles of power and resignation, but as vehicles of liberation. With one-dimensionality as a dominant theme across the prevailing musical forms of our eras, we're led to question how to actually put such circuitry, sonic agency, into practice. It is perhaps through closer examination with these communities that we can explore putting theory into work, particularly as Marcuse stated in One-Dimensional Man, quote, "Underneath the conservative popular base is a substratum of the outcasts, the outsiders, the exploited and the persecuted of other races and colors, the unemployed and the unemployable. They exist outside the democratic process. Their life is the most immediate and the most real in need for ending intolerable conditions and institutions. Thus, their opposition is revolutionary even if their consciousness is not. It is through such a reinterpretation that possibilities emerge which could reinvigorate Marcuse's call for a new technological base to revive certain lost qualities of artisan work. Further, it must, through such a proposition, we can begin to engage with the possibility and even enhance Marcuse's notion of radical sensibility to engage the active constitutive role of the senses in shaping reasons. Such senses are not merely passive for Marcuse, but receptive. They have their own synthesis to which they subject the primary data of experience, allowing a world to emerge of a totality of sensuous qualities not only of the eye, but of all human senses. It is through this engagement with primary experience itself for Marcuse, which must challenge if radical social change is to indeed be radical, qualitative change capable of leading to emancipation of the senses that would ultimately generate new socialist relationships. Perhaps some of the most promising action comes from collectives which explore such issues while also embodying the type of autonomous local basis which Marcuse described. By exploring such localized communities, activities of sonic nature, we may find emergent examples of such phenomena. In one of his final interviews before his death, Marcuse argued that aesthetic liberation is best suited to begin with individuals and small groups. In context, whether through individual practices such as Licenses or elements and their work with collectives such as Ultra-Red, we can begin to discover worthy trajectories of sonic agency against hegemonic strictures of neoliberalism, whether in the past or present. While this paper has merely touched upon a couple examples of possibility, a much larger project is still yet to be realized in relation to sound and its liberating properties of expression.